decided on that. So I'm with the Senior Source. I am a counselor, advisor with the Senior Source. And before we get into our topic of Medicare, by the way, I just want to see a show of hands. Who's on Medicare in this room? Okay. Another show of hands. Who has Medicare figured out? Okay. All right. Well, good. Then maybe this will be worthwhile. So let me just go ahead and we'll go right into our slide presentation. There was handouts out in the hallway, so I hope everybody was able to grab a handout of the slides. Let me first, if I may, talk about the program that I'm a part of at the Senior Source. So anyways, the Senior Source has been around, as Molly mentioned, great resource. Nonprofit, been around since 1961 in Dallas, and basically the goal of the Senior Source is to connect seniors in Dallas with either opportunities and or resources, depending upon their needs. Okay, so the program that I'm a part of is called the Elders Financial Safety Center. That's actually the newest program.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Carl Burlbaw.
I've got good practice. Believe me, trust me. Every time I say my last name, I spell it just as a practice because people usually like, huh? So. All right. Well, thank you, Molly.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
So, in talking about my program I'm a part of at the Senior Source called the Elder Financial Safety Center. It's the newest program. We started in 2014, and the goal or the mission of this program is to help older adults deal with financial hardship. Okay. Now, financial hardship can come in many different forms, but this is actually a very unique program that I'm a part of, and if you look at this slide, you'll see why. It actually combines the services of the Senior Source with services from the Dallas County District Attorney's Office and the Dallas County Probate Courts. And we each have a role in as far as collaborating together. The role of the Senior Source is prevention, providing prevention services. The Probate Courts is about protection for our most vulnerable citizens, and the DA's office is about prosecution for any cases where there's possible financial exploitation or fraud. Okay? And so the areas that we focus on, or the things that we feel like every older adult in Dallas has a right to: economic security, public safety, independence, education and awareness, protection, and justice. That's all a part of this program. Now, as far as the need, and trust me, there's a tremendous need out there. Just some numbers to back up what we're doing. 78% of all senior households have been determined to be financially vulnerable or do not have sustainable economic security. As far as the amount of money that is lost, people that have become victims of fraud, scam, or exploitation, the number right now is over $36 billion a year is lost. And that's just from what's reported. So a lot of people feel like that number is underreported. And then this is a very alarming statistic. Almost 1 million older adults are having to skip meals every day because they're having to decide where to spend their money on rent, pay their taxes, prescriptions, or food. And a lot of them are choosing, unfortunately, they're
nationwide or in Texas? Or
I'm sorry?
Big number. Is it nationwide?
This is, yes, ma'am. This is nationwide. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, so as far as the prevention services that we provide, so at the very surface, we provide financial coaching and counseling. And so my background is in insurance, and I do a lot of insurance counseling and advising to people. Also, we have money management, and that's a service that provides, it's for people that are starting to lose that capacity to maintain their finances, and we actually have a staff of volunteers who will go out and meet with clients, usually at their homes, making sure that they'll sit down with them, making sure that their mail is being tended to, that bills are being paid, help them organize their finances just so that they can maintain some level of independence. And then as you see on the bottom of this slide, the foundation of our program is built on employment services. So again, that's anybody who's age 50 and older who's seeking some type of employment. Benefits assistance, so for people who, based on their income and their assets, they may be eligible for some type of benefit program that can help supplement their income. Frauds and scams advocacy, we are the only organization that provides one-on-one frauds and scams counseling for people who have become victims of a fraud or a scam. Financial literacy education. So let me just point out, let's see, where did I put it? On the table out front, I provided a flyer which says Get Money Smart. So this is actually talks about, we actually host a financial education and literacy class called Money Smart for older adults. And it's really for anybody that wants to attend, but again, we tailor it to adults, older adults, people over 50, or their family members and caregivers. But we talk about all different types of financial topics for older adults. And the class is set up that we meet 4 times, once a week for 4 consecutive weeks for 2 hours. And again, it's a great, I highly recommend it. Just to, again, we cover a variety of financial topics, and again, and it's also a great way for people to come together and connect with others, and so again, I highly recommend that. Some of the numbers that are attached to these are some of the results of our program since we started in 2014. So we have directly impacted over 16,000 adults in Dallas. Now, just to give you a little bit an idea about that number, when we started the program in 2014, we forecasted that we would help about 4,000 over the first 5 years of our program, and you can see we've just about tripled that, or even quadrupled that number. Empowered, over 30,000. So empowered, that's just a fancy word for educated. So kind of like what I'm doing hopefully tonight. And secured $75 million in our community. So that number comes from not only helping people save money, but also from protection of assets. Okay, and a big part of what we do when we go out and educate people is we talk about what some people call the silver tsunami. So the silver tsunami is the baby boomer generation. How many baby boomers do we have in the room here? Okay, so we sort of have a little bit of a silver tsunami working here. So the silver tsunami is 10,000 baby boomers that are turning 65 every day until the year 2030, okay? And so the statistics that go along with these baby boomers, on average, they will live to the age of 80, a little over 85, so at least another 20 years. That's just on average. 1 in 4 will reach the age of 90, 1 in 10 will reach the age of 95. On average, these baby boomers have about $104,000 in savings when they reach age 65. So a little over $100,000, if they're going to live another 20, maybe even 25, 30 years, is that really going to, how's that look for them? And then the average Social Security check is a little over $1,400 right now. Unfortunately, we see a lot of people who try to live out those 20, 30 years just on Social Security alone. This is a tool that we use when we're counseling people. This is basically it forecasts, or it's showing you longevity tables. So it takes a couple who, man and wife, or man and woman, who both reach the age of 65, and because you see along the top line, you can see 100%, we know that they've reached the age of 65. So what this is showing you is the likelihood at which they will each live to a certain age. And of course, because women have a longer lifespan than men, you can see that if you go down on the far left column, you'll see 20 years, so at age 85, you see that the man, there's 37% chance that the husband is still alive, 51% chance that the wife is still alive, and then you see this number here, 19% that both are still alive. So what that means is that it's probably a good idea that at some point they start planning when just one will still be living, and so that one, either husband or wife, will be able to sustain on their own. And then this is another tool we use, a visual tool. You see over on the left-hand side, it says, towards the end, it all comes down to health and housing. But what this is the sturdy stool of retirement. Has anybody seen the sturdy stool of retirement before? See a few hands. Okay, so this is showing you to maintain a sturdy stool of retirement, you should have 3 sturdy legs or sources of income. And so the one leg on the left represents Social Security, the middle leg represents a pension or an annuity payment, and then the last leg represents assets that you could liquidate, such as home equity, savings, investments, 401k or a 403b. Again, we unfortunately see a lot of people who try to maintain a sturdy stool with less than 3 legs. All right, so we're talking about the silver tsunami, but as far as Medicare is concerned, this is where we're at as far as Medicare goes. So in 2017, we had about 57 million people who were receiving Medicare in this country. Okay, so now if we project out to 2030, which as I said, 2030, that's the year that the baby boomers, 10,000 each day are turning 65 until that year. That number jumps up to 73 million that will be on Medicare by 2030. And then 2040 will be at 80 million, and you can see where it's going at that point. And now this is just people who age into Medicare. This does not include people that have Medicare through disability benefits. Okay, so basically you can see the stress that's being put on Medicare as we move forward. Okay, so Medicare enrollment. So Medicare what comes with Medicare is, you hear things about Medicare penalties and deadlines, and there's Part A and B and C and D, and it can become a whole, can become very stressful. So, I before I came to the Senior Source, I worked for a company that dealt in what's known as Medicare exchange. And so what that is that's when, say, a large company, I won't name, let's say Company X. Company X has been offering benefits to their retirees lifetime. We'll say, air quotes, right? Lifetime benefits. Well, you can see we're living longer these days, so Company X has looked at their bottom line and says, don't think we can fulfill that promise of offering lifetime benefits anymore to our retirees. So what they do is they partner with the company that I worked for, and they say, okay, we're no longer going to be able to offer benefits to our retirees who are Medicare eligible. So what we want you to do is get with these retirees on an individual basis, help them decide what's going to be the right coverage for them to replace what they're losing from us, and then we'll throw in a little bit of subsidy each year to help them offset the cost. And so that's how I became familiar with Medicare, the whole Medicare game. And Medicare really is a game, is the way I look at it. And what's the one thing you need to know, or it's good to know about a game before you start playing? The what? The rules, exactly. So I I feel like a big part of what I do is helping people understand the rules before they start playing this game of Medicare. So, and I will say this, and it's not just for Medicare, but for insurance, just in general, I tend to see that, as people get older, and it's understandable, you want to make your life simpler. But it seems as people get older, they have more and more of an aversion to insurance. It seems like they tend to want to just kind of push it aside and hope that it works itself out. They don't want to have to make too many crucial decisions about their insurance needs. But unfortunately, that's the way it's worked out with Medicare. So. We have this slide here. We have an illustration. I'll describe for you what's going on in this illustration. So we have a doctor's office setting, and we have a gentleman who's in the doctor's office, and he's sitting on the exam table, and he's wearing that examination gown. So he's feeling really confident, right? Because he's kind of tugging at it, making sure it's covering all the right places. And he says, "Doctor, I have anxiety, headaches, insomnia, and panic attacks." And the doctor says, "Well, sir, it sounds like you're shopping for a Medicare plan." So, all right. So, thank you for that support. So all right. So that might be the last time we laugh for a while as I get into. All right. So now we're going to get into Medicare. All right. So let's just talk about enrolling in Medicare. So. There's, as far as Medicare goes, getting into Medicare. So when you're turning 65, you can choose to, if you have not decided to take your Social Security benefits yet, because you can start taking Social Security as early as 62. If you're already taking your Social Security by age 65, when you become eligible for Medicare, Medicare will already go ahead and automatically enroll you. They'll send you a card, say, "Here you go. Here's your Medicare card. The month that you turn 65, the first day of the month, you are covered by Medicare. Here you go." And they will also start deducting the Medicare premium from your benefits. Now, the other way that you can get Medicare is, let's say if you're not, if you're not getting your benefits yet, your Social Security benefits, you can either, let's say, and you're still working, you can delay Medicare until you no longer have your employer coverage, or you can, let's say you don't have, let's say you're not getting your Social Security yet, but you don't want to go ahead and get Medicare. You have to initiate enrollment with Social Security, and you have 7 months to do that surrounding your 65th birthday. It's called your initial enrollment period. Okay, so this slide here, what this is this a visual tool that I like to use when I'm counseling people about Medicare. And what this is showing you, this is all of the components of Medicare and how they work together. You can see over on the left where it says Original Medicare, you have Part A for hospital insurance, you have Part B, medical, that covers your doctors and any outpatient services. Below that, you have Part D for prescription drugs. Medicare says that once you become eligible, you must have some form of prescription drug coverage. Okay, now that can be through your employer if you're already getting, if you're still on your employer coverage. But you must have that prescription drug coverage in place. Otherwise, you are susceptible to a penalty at some point. Below the Part D square or rectangle, you have what's known as Medicare Supplement or Medigap. That is a secondary to Part A and B. It strictly pays the costs that Medicare A and B do not cover. Is there anyone in here that has Medigap as a secondary for Medicare? Okay. So, there are costs. We'll get more into the cost details about Medicare. Over on this side, on the right-hand side, you have the other option you can choose as far as getting benefits through Medicare. You have Medicare Advantage. It's also known as Part C, and that's actually a combination of benefits for A, B, and D all rolled into one plan. It's similar to coverage that you get through your employer. It's privatized insurance. It's set up as either an HMO or a PPO plan. And the one thing that we'll talk about as we go along here is if you have Medicare Advantage, you cannot get Medicare Supplement or Medigap to go with that. They just don't work together. Okay, so let's dive into the Medicare components and some of the details. So Part A, we already talked about at age 65. That's when you can go on and get Part A. For most people, it's free as long as you've worked the equivalent of 10 years or 40 quarters as far as Social Security is concerned. If you're a spouse and you've never worked, you can get it through your husband. You can get it through your spouse. So, and just like with getting Social Security benefits, if say you have a couple and they divorced, as long as you've been married for 10 years, you can get Medicare, or you can get it through your spouse on their record, as long as you've been, again, married for 10 years. At the bottom where you see it under Part A, it says benefit period deductible. So the way Part A covers you when you are admitted as a patient to a hospital. So it's going to cover your room and board. The way it works is it works off of benefit periods. And a benefit period is 60 days without hospital coverage. So let's say you go into the hospital and you spend, let's say, 2 weeks in the hospital, and then you're discharged. But then let's say you have to go back the next month for the exact same reason that you were admitted the first time. Well, in that situation, you're still in your same benefit period. You would not have to be responsible for that deductible that Part A requires. Now, however, if you go past the 60-day period, then you would be required to meet a new benefit period with a new deductible. Okay? If you look at the Part B column, so again, Part B covers your doctor visits, it covers outpatient services, it covers durable medical equipment. There is a monthly premium for Part B, and everybody pays that monthly premium. For 2019, right now, the monthly premium is $135.50. If you're getting Social Security, it's probably already being deducted from your Social Security check. If you're on Medicare but you're not getting benefits yet, your Social Security benefits, then Medicare's billing you like in a 3-month, a quarterly basis for that premium. The 80-20, what that refers to is that Part B is an 80%, 20% coinsurance, where Medicare will pay 80% of the approved service, and then the patient's responsible for the remaining 20%. Okay. Part D is for prescription drugs. So the way that works is Medicare approves, in Dallas, there's about 20 or 25 individual Medicare Part D prescription plans that you can enroll in. And Medicare approves each of these plans. There's varying monthly premiums for these plans. So the average monthly cost, and this is just to be enrolled in the plan, is about $33. So you pay that $33 or whatever the monthly premium is to be enrolled, and then you would pay your co-pays at the pharmacy, depending upon where your prescriptions fall in the drug plan's formulary. So you have co-pays, you have deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses are what you would experience with Part D.
Under A, what does 1040 mean? Free.
So the 1040, that's where if you worked the equivalent of 10 years or 40 quarters or contributed that to Social Security, then you get your Medicare for free, no cost for Part A. Yeah, that's good. I know I'm throwing a lot of information your way. Let's talk about Medicare versus Medicare Advantage, because I get a lot of people asking which way should I go? What's the right way for me to go as far as getting my benefits? So if you look at this diagram, what you see here is you have your bubbles. Your middle bubble is original Medicare, so that includes Part A, Part B, Part D, which we've talked about those, and then the Medigap, which we'll get more into Medigap here in a minute, versus getting your Medicare Advantage, which is either set up as an HMO, which means you must stay in the network that's set up, the network of doctors and providers, or it could be a PPO, which allows you some freedom to go outside the network to see providers and still get benefits. The top bubbles, all-in-one, so again, Medicare Advantage is an all-in-one type of plan. It combines benefits for A, B, and D. And so you don't have to enroll in an individual drug plan if you have a Medicare Advantage plan that already has prescription benefits included. Okay, so let's talk about some of the differences between Medicare Supplement, which you can get as your secondary with original Medicare, or Medicare Advantage. So with Medicare Supplement, that means you have freedom of choice, meaning in theory you can go anywhere in the United States to see a doctor who accepts Medicare and be covered. Whereas with Medicare Advantage, you're limited by the network of doctors that's set up for you through the plan. Okay, Medicare's monthly premium. So what this is, the message here is that with the Medicare Supplement, you're paying that monthly premium to the plan that go along needing medical services. With Medicare Advantage, you have less in terms of monthly premiums that you're paying, but the understanding is that you may have to pay out-of-pocket costs in terms of co-pays, deductibles, things like that. Hello? Yes?
Yeah. On that last sheet.
Yes.
Is that freedom of choice, is that hospitals as well as doctors?
So her question was the freedom of choice on this slide. Does that apply to hospitals as well as doctors? Yes, yes. Any providers, providers that accept Medicare. Okay, so with Medicare Supplement again is strictly medical coverage only. There's no prescription benefits, there's no dental, there's no vision, no additional benefits other than medical. The Medicare Supplement is going to pay for services as long as Medicare A and B have first approved that service. For Medicare Advantage, it includes prescription benefits along with medical, and depending upon the plan, it may have other benefits as well. May have dental, may have vision, may have hearing, just depends on the plan. Okay, on this slide, the differences between Medicare Supplement and Medicare Advantage. So Medicare Supplement, pre-existing conditions. So we talked about the 7 months that surround your initial enrollment period with Medicare. Let's talk about this. There's a period of 6 months that follows when you first go on to Medicare, and it's known as guaranteed issue period. And what that means is that you can choose to enroll in a Medicare Supplement plan during that 6-month period without the insurance companies, because this is private insurance. The insurance companies are not allowed to ask you about pre-existing conditions or health status and then use that information to determine if you're eligible or how much they're going to charge you for that policy. It's only during that 6 months that after you've first gone on to Medicare. After that, then you open yourselves up to underwriting from the insurance companies. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't qualify, but it just means that they can now take that information from you and use it, again, to determine eligibility and your cost. Yes, sir.
Once you pick a supplement in that 6-month period,
Yes.
and say 2 years later, you decide that you want to switch carriers,
Okay.
at that point, you have to undergo underwriting, is that correct?
That would, yes, sir. Because then you're past that guaranteed issue, and you just have to be aware that in making that decision to switch to a different company, that you may be opening yourself up to underwriting.
Okay.
All right. As far as Medicare Advantage goes, the only thing that would disqualify somebody from enrolling in a Medicare Advantage would be kidney failure, if they have a diagnosis of renal failure. Okay?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So suppose you work for a company that says you have lifetime medical and we're going to offer you our company Advantage plan. And then somewhere down the road, the board says, you know what, this is just too expensive for us, like you're describing.
Yep.
Would that count as a qualifying life event that would then put you, if you had to then enroll in Medicare, would the pre-existing condition be waived in a sense because you're now enrolling for the first time?
So her question deals with if you are on a retiree plan, and then all of a sudden, for instance, this situation I described where I worked, and then that company decides they no longer want to offer that plan, those benefits to you, basically taking it away from you. And her question, does that qualify as to allow you a special enrollment in Medicare? And yes, it does. That would qualify, yes. So you would have, I'm not sure the exact length of time, but you would have at least 60 days, probably. I think it's more like, it might be up to 8 months that you would then have to decide what's your next, how to replace that coverage that you lost from your employer. So, and then, but yes, that would give you that freedom then of choosing the Medigap, the Medicare supplement, without having to go through underwriting.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Good question. Thank you. And one thing I wanted to say, and before I really got into all of this, as far as my role at the Senior Source, so I told you before I came to the Senior Source, I did work for a company that dealt with Medicare exchange. So basically, we sold Medicare products. Okay, so that meant that I had to acquire an insurance license with the state of Texas. That meant that I had to become certified with any of the companies that we represented as far as their products were concerned. In my role now with the Senior Source, I still maintain my insurance license with the state of Texas, but that's only because the Senior Source requires me to do so, just more of it as far as a credibility. I do not use my license in terms of as far as an agent's role. I'm not certified with any companies or anything like that. I'm not here to, my role is not to represent any particular companies or products. My role is strictly as a objective party looking at someone's individual needs and helping them decide what's going to be the right choice for them. Now, that's not to say that there's people out there that are licensed and do those things, that represent that they can't help you. There are good people that can do that. But, I don't have any agenda as far as helping my clients make these decisions. An insurance agent, as good as they might be, they're going to be compensated when they're helping somebody. They help somebody enroll. I mean, for them, it's about having their name attached to that policy as the agent of record, and in perpetuity, that's what they're hoping, that that's what happens, that person stays with that policy and that they remain as the agent of record. So, anyways, I just wanted to state that as far as my role at the Senior Source. These are some important takeaways for Medicare supplement. I think I've already said this, but Medicare supplement only pays if original Medicare has approved the service. So Medicare supplement just will follow along exactly the way that Part A or Part B, as far as approving the claim. We talked about the guaranteed issue. That's the first 6 months that you're in Medicare, or you get a special enrollment because you lost benefits that was outside your control or something like that. And then the third thing is, before buying a Medicare supplement, I encourage people to, as far as the companies that they're dealing with, find out about that company's recent history of rate increases, because you can expect, once you purchase a Medigap, to see those premiums increase as you get older. And just try to find out what kind of rate of increase you can expect. Okay, I mean, can you expect 5%, 3%, 10%? I mean, just get an idea so that you're not surprised after you bought the policy, maybe at a pretty low price, but then all of a sudden it hits you with a pretty high rate increase. So, it's certainly your right to inquire about that information. Okay, so we're going to move over to Medicare prescription drug coverage. Mind the gap. So that's referring to what's known as the coverage gap, or also the donut hole. And I actually, I had some donut hole discussion earlier with my table mates. So what this is referring to is, so the way that the Medicare prescription drug coverage is set up, it's set up on a calendar cycle. And so if you start on the left of this slide, you see the annual deductible. So if you enroll in a prescription drug plan, January 1, you start in the deductible phase of coverage. And so depending upon what the deductible is, you have to meet the deductible, and then at some point, once you've met the deductible, then you go into what's known as initial coverage, or basically copay, where you pay, whatever it is, $2 for a generic, maybe $10 or $20 for a brand name drug, okay? Once you get to the donut hole, that's where it gets really complicated, okay? And so the way the system works is, it's basically a shared cost system, and it's shared between the patient and the insurance company that you're signed up with. So for instance, let me give you an example. So let's say you have a prescription drug that has a retail cost of, let's say, $200. Okay. But let's say under your plan, your copay is $20. Okay, so you're not, $20. That's reasonable. So you're paying your $20. But who's paying the remainder of that $200? The insurance company. Insurance company is divvying up the $180. Okay, so when you're paying the $20, they're paying the $180. So as you go along during the year, you accumulate this money that both of you all are paying in. You paying your $20 and the insurance company paying the $180. Once that accumulation has reached a certain dollar amount, and I think it's about $4,000 for the year, then you go into the donut hole. And so what happens when you go into the donut hole, so in that $200 drug, instead of $20, you now pay 40% off the retail price. So instead of that $20, 40%, you're now paying $80. Okay, so that's a pretty big increase. So that's what happens when people go into the donut hole. So there's really no way to avoid the donut hole once you're already in a plan. I mean, unless you just stop taking your drugs, and that's probably not a practical approach. So many times, usually it happens mid to the latter part of the year that you see people going into the donut hole, and we get calls from people around that time of the year. I'm in the donut hole, how can I get out? Well, the only way you can get out is just continue to buy your prescriptions as you normally would, and if the numbers work out right, eventually you may get out and you go into what's called catastrophic, which is, I believe it's a 5%, you pay no more than 5% off your retail, the cost of your drugs at that point. Yes, ma'am.
We've experienced the donut hole with my husband.
Yes.
And what I found out, trying to figure out how to avoid it partially, and I'm good friends with the druggist at CVS, is that a lot of times they'll call you before your prescription's ready. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, it's run out.
Sure.
So if they do that consistently enough toward the end of the year, you run out and get in the donut hole earlier. So if you talk with them and have them wait 2 or 3 days to fill it before it's going to run out, then you push that out a little bit at the end of the year.
Okay.
And that saved us maybe at least 1 month, until we got the
Sure.
until we still got in there.
Okay.
And it helped a little.
Sure.
Because his did jump just about like that, you know, from 80 to 200.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
and-
So she was describing a way to kind of
beat the
offset or delay, let's say delay going into the donut hole, was just working with your pharmacy and having them maybe push your prescription back a couple of days, right? Is that,
Insurance calls us sometimes 8 to 10 days ahead of time.
oh, they do that? Okay.
And so, you know, if you just go down and get it, I never thought about it, you know.
Now is that, can I ask you, is that on a 90-day cycle for getting?
Some of them, well, it used to be on the 30 day.
Okay,
Yeah.
so third,
Now-
yeah,
Now, most of them have been switched to the 90 day.
okay.
So I'm gonna have to kind of refigure that
Yeah.
out this year, you know.
Yeah,
so
let's
that's-
figure your,
But this was on, when it was just the 30 day.
okay.
I think so.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much for that. Yeah, so you can see how this system that we have, it can really impact someone's bottom line depending upon their prescription needs. You know, a lot of people just can't take generics of certain drugs. They need that brand name. You know, we all have our own chemistry, right? And so just because generics work for most people doesn't mean it might work for you. So, you know, the things that we tell people, check with your doctors, see if you can get samples of prescriptions you need. There are programs with the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies, to get assistance. You know, so again, it's the system that we have in place. I believe it came into effect around 2005, 2006. I think Congress passed our current system. I think it was because at that time everybody was fleeing to Canada, I think, to get their prescriptions. So, all right. Any further questions? Yes.
Can you explain the catastrophic coverage portion?
Okay, so the catastrophic coverage, which is the last phase that you will see in that calendar cycle, is once you've reached the dollar amount that takes you out of the donut hole, whatever that dollar amount is. I think it might be, it's $5,000. It depends, $5,000, $6,000 share in that shared cost system. Once you've you've left the donut hole, you go into catastrophic. Catastrophic is where you pay no more than I think it's 5% retail, the 5% off the retail cost of your prescription. So you went from let's say paying 40%, or I think this year it might be 35%. Every year in the donut hole has changed a little bit. The percentage off the retail has gotten smaller. But so you go from paying, say, 35% or 40% of the $200 drug to paying 5% for the remainder of the year. And then it'll stay that way until the end of the year, and then January 1 is when it starts all over again. Yes, sir.
Once you're in the catastrophic coverage, do you ever have to requalify, or do you remain eligible for the rest of your life?
Well, it starts over. It's a calendar system. So if you're in the catastrophic December 31st, everybody starts over January 1. You may be in the same plan you were in, or you may have switched to a different plan, which would then start January 1. Okay, so it's all based on a calendar, 12-month calendar cycle. Yes, sir.
About some of the websites you see that you can get coupons from, does that impact, is that outside, totally outside? In other words, there's a goodrx.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can see costs all
Sure,
over that.
sure.
Is that totally outside of what we're talking about here?
Good question. So his question was these discount pharmaceutical or prescription, such as GoodRx. I can't think of other. That's the one that stands out to me. But his question was, if you use that discount card to get your fill and pay that cost, is that outside of Medicare's prescription drug system? And yes. So you would use it outside of using your Medicare insurance. And so it wouldn't go again, so then it wouldn't, this system only works if you're using your Medicare insurance plan, that it will accumulate, that they'll use this cost sharing system. So if you use like GoodRx, what's that?
Could keep you up the donut hole.
It could, certainly, it's a way to, it's a way to pay that donut hole expense if that's what your situation, if you're incurring that. Yes, sir.
But I've had several drugs that had amazing discounts off of the retail, but they said not valid in Medicare. What's going on there? Some drugs were $300 a month, I only paid $25, and it was not income based or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing said, you can do this for the next 3 years until you go on Medicare, and then we're not allowed to offer discounts. You familiar with that, or?
Okay, so it's some type of program, like a
By the drug company.
by the drug company.
Drug
Okay, okay.
Is reducing their costs, not income based, they just do it.
Just do it. Just something that you've come across and they're offering it, right?
Several different drugs that were just regularly $300 a month, now you just pay $25.
Well, so he's asking about a program that maybe a manufacturer is offering outside of the Medicare prescription cost system. It would seem to me that that's a way that the manufacturer has determined that people are avoiding buying their drugs through Medicare, and so maybe it's a way that they can still sell their product, but
No, they've got a restriction saying, when you go on Medicare, you no longer get this.
okay, so it's prior to Medicare.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
several of them said, hit Medicare, and then we're not allowed legally to do this while you're on Medicare.
Well, it must be, again, because Medicare is so heavily regulated by Congress, I'm sure it's some agreement that they probably have to offer that as long as a person is not Medicare eligible.
Right.
So, I don't,
Some of those discounts are
I don't
going
work-
away. You get Medicare.
I don't work for, I've never worked for a pharmaceutical company. I mean, I hear it can be very fruitful. I don't know. So, any other questions about our system of prescription drug cost sharing? Yes.
When you hit the donut hole, and you keep your payment for almost all the prescriptions, but maybe not all, is 5% or 35%?
I'm sorry. Your question again?
After you've hit the donut hole,
After you've hit the donut hole, yes.
how much do you have, you don't have to pay every bit of it, part of it, a little part of it is paid still, you said 5% maybe, or?
That's going to be at the most. That's the most you'll pay is 5%. So if you have a generic that costs nothing, they're not going to, that wouldn't really affect that. It's really only for your expensive medications where that really comes into play.
Okay,
So-
so you're going to have some coverage in the donut hole.
You have some coverage, yes. So it's just that basically what happens is the donut hole, up until the donut hole, most of the responsibility of paying for that drug falls on the insurance company. So then it just shifts the responsibility more to the patient
Okay.
of paying for that prescription.
Then you are in that donut hole until what, $5,000 or something?
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figure with me.
If it takes a
it's-
year or 2 years or whatever it takes,
Well, no, again, this is all a 12-month cycle. So you would not be in the donut hole
You're in the donut hole the rest of that year.
the rest of that calendar year, yes, ma'am.
At the beginning of the next calendar year.
It starts all over.
You're out of the donut.
You go back to the deductible at the beginning. You start over. You start over in the deductible phase. Okay?
You mind if I could just point out something I learned?
Yes, please. Yes,
Sorry.
Mr. Walker.
So keep in mind, getting out of the donut hole, that's not a deductible concept. So if they say you get out of the donut hole at $6,000, you may have only personally paid $3,100. And the insurance company may have paid $2,900 or whatever. But that gets you out of the donut hole. So it's not a deductible. It's a combined payments made by you and the insurance company to that point.
Right. I think the term is true out of pocket or something to that effect. It's yes. So you hit a certain number that goes to get you into the donut hole, and then you continue to purchase your prescriptions as needed, and then at some point if you reach another number, a higher number, that takes you out of the donut hole into the catastrophic coverage phase. Yes, ma'am.
Well, somewhere in there, and I don't remember if it's from the insurance company or just exactly where, it tells you what the limit is.
Yes.
Before you go into the donut hole.
Yes, ma'am.
It says on the inside.
Yeah.
One of the insurance
Yeah.
papers you get to the donut hole.
Right, and I think you're talking about your monthly statement, right? Is that? Yeah. If you're enrolled in Medicare.
Several pages.
Yes. So if you're enrolled in Medicare prescription coverage, every month you should get a statement from your insurance company showing what purchases you made, what your share was, what the insurance company paid, and where you are at in terms of reaching the donut hole for the year. Okay? So. All right. Any other comments or okay. We all and I always like to say the donut hole, that's not that those add-ons you get every Sunday morning at the with the dozen that you buy. Yes, yes.
I'm not on Medicare Advantage, but I was
Okay.
curious, if you're on that,
Mm-hmm.
you have to use the certain group, but what if you take a trip to Ohio and you get sick? Are you out of luck?
So, okay, so her question is about Medicare Advantage, which she says she's not been on, but her question is traveling with a Medicare Advantage plan. So you buy a plan that covers you here in Dallas or in Texas, but you said travel like to Ohio was your example, right? Well, if you have a PPO, your PPO in theory says that you can go outside the network and still get some benefits. That's what the insurance company says. I tell people, well, make sure that the doctor agrees with that. The doctor that's servicing you,
In Ohio?
make sure he will accept the terms of that plan that you're covered by. If you're in an HMO, you're probably out of luck because HMO is very restrictive. You must see your primary care that you've assigned. You must see, if you see a specialist, that specialist, you have to get a referral from the primary before you see that specialist. Yes, so, yes.
Something you might want to mention, and I won't get it loud enough, you can repeat
Okay.
it. But if you're traveling out of the country, Medicare covers nothing. If you have a Medicare supplement, many of them cover those expenses incurred out of the country.
Did you read my mind? I was just going to mention that. I have a story about that.
Okay.
All right. So this gentleman asked me to talk about foreign travel. Now, if you have Medicare, A and B by itself, that will not cover you overseas. However, depending upon the Medigap that you have as your secondary, that may cover up to 80%. And I have a story, personal story. Mother-in-law was in Mexico this past summer. And love my mother-in-law to death. She's wonderful. She can have a little problems with balance sometimes. She was in the bathroom at this hotel. She stepped on the rug, slipped, fell, and broke her wrist in Mexico. Had to go get it taken care of. And of course she comes back. She's got this big cast on going all the way from her shoulder all the way down to her hand. She did need surgery when she got back. But I said to her, I go, oh, so you know that and she's covered by, I won't say, she's covered by Plan F. I'll just say she's covered by Plan F, which we'll talk more about here in a minute. I said, you do know that your Medigap will cover part of that? She goes, really? I said, yeah, it'll cover up to 80%. She's like, I didn't know that. She paid $5,000 for services in Mexico. She got back, she sent in a claim with the proper documents to her insurance company, and she got back $3,700. So paid her 80% of that cost. So just thank you for setting me up with that. Thank you, sir.
You will get into Plan F, because I thought there was a $600 yearly cap.
What's that?
I thought there was a $600 cap on coverage out of the country.
Oh, okay.
Plan F, but I
Okay.
don't think you were saying there's not, so.
No, there's no cap as far as I'm aware of.
Oh.
So I mean, like I said, this example that I'm describing,
Obviously,
but yeah,
there's no cap.
yeah, exactly. All right, so we are going to move to. All right, these are just some important things. Again, these are more important rules to know before you start playing this game. If you are a higher income earner, you may pay more to Medicare. Medicare can tax you, and it's going to be based on your tax return from 2 years prior. So if you go onto Medicare, let's say in 2019 for the first time, Medicare can go back and look at your tax return from 2017, and if you're over a certain income, they will tax you. They'll send you a statement at some point. You'll get something in the mail that says, oh, based on information we've gathered from IRS on your, here's a tax that we're asking you to pay. Okay? But as you move forward, it should adjust itself, because it's it does that look back every 2 years. So 2019, it'll look at 2017. In 2020, it will look at 2018. So you can see it just moves forward. So it's not always looking back at the same information.
Can I
Okay.
ask a quick question about what you
Yeah.
just said?
Okay.
Is that a tax, or is it just your premiums?
Well, it's on top. I call it a tax. I mean,
It's on top of your premiums?
it's on top of your premiums. Yes. Yes. So it's added to that standard premium amount, that $135.50. So, and it's you know, so if you make above this amount, you get this much added. If you make above this amount, it's then an addition. So it's like it's a tiered system.
Do you know what those thresholds are?
Here's the tax is known as IRMA. IRM, the initials are IRMAA. So if you Google that, Google IRMA, IRMAA, you can see those, that information. And it's based on it's going to be based on your tax return. It's based on your modified adjusted gross income. Is that?
So I can answer
Just to
that.
keep things moving, let's, everybody write
Yeah.
down their questions.
Okay.
And let's
Okay.
let us answer after he finishes with the slideshow. Would
Okay.
that be okay? Otherwise, we're gonna be here till midnight.
Okay.
So everybody write down whatever questions, and then
All right.
after we finish.
All right. To avoid if for some reason you didn't enroll in Medicare when you should have, they can penalize you 10%, and that's based on a 12-month without coverage for a 12-month period. But that penalty can be in perpetuity for lifetime. It'll stay with you. 2018, this past year, they issued new Medicare card numbers. They went away from using Social Security numbers to now issuing just random set of numbers and letters for people, hopefully to limit or reduce identity theft. Working at 65, you can delay, in most cases you can delay going on to Medicare if you still have your employer group coverage. If you have a health savings account, or you've been contributing to a health savings account, once you're eligible for Medicare, you can no longer contribute to that health savings account. Now you can still withdraw from it, but you just can't make any new contributions. And then the Affordable Care Act, if you have an Affordable Care Act plan, which is also known as Obamacare, the key to that plan is the tax credits you're eligible for to help offset the premiums. Once you become eligible for Medicare, you're no longer eligible for those tax credits to help pay for the premium. So there's doesn't make sense to stay on your Affordable Care Act plan once you are eligible for Medicare. This talks about some of the things that free prevention services through Medicare, annual wellness visit, cardiovascular screening, mammograms, flu shots, cancer screening. What's not covered, it's important to know, routine dental and eye care, dentures and hearing aids, and then long-term care or custodial care, which is, again, speaks to the activities of daily living. People that need help with feeding, dressing, bathing, that's Medicare is not in, does not cover that. Okay, these are the enrollment options. So once you're already in Medicare, you've gone through your initial enrollment period. Every year between October 15th, December 7th is the annual enrollment period, and that's when you can decide. First of all, you review your current plan to decide if you want to stay with it or you want to switch to a different plan, and that applies to a Medicare Advantage plan or your Part D prescription plan. One thing that people get confused about with the enrollment period is the Medigap. Medigap plans are not beholden to the annual Medicare. You can enroll in a Medigap plan anytime during the year. Okay, anytime. It's not, you don't have to wait until the October 15th, December 7th time period. Now, something that's new this year is Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. And we're actually in that period right now, January 1st through March 31st. And what this is if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you can decide to either, during this time period, before March 31st, you can switch out and go back to having original Medicare as your primary, or you can switch from one Medicare Advantage plan to another one. And that will remain as your coverage for the remainder of the year. Okay, these are some significant changes to Medicare that happened this year. So we've already talked in length about the donut hole. So the donut hole, just to let you know, the donut hole, this is what Congress says. They say the donut hole actually closed for brand name drugs in 2019. And what that means is that the percentage that you're paying off of the brand name drugs has gone down to 25% this year. Originally it was supposed to be in 2020, but they moved it up to this year. So now for 2019, if you're in the donut hole and you have a brand name drug, you should only be paying 25% off that retail cost. Okay? Therapy cap is now gone, and what that is that you won't have to pay full cost of outpatient physical, speech, or occupational therapy. Congress has permanently repealed the cap that historically has limited coverage on those services. Better information, so Medicare is always looking to improve their ways of communicating to people. So I brought some of these. I have them up here. I only have a few. Unfortunately, I don't have one for every individual that came today. But if anybody would like a Medicare and You handbook for 2019, it's the current edition. There's no 2020 yet. So if you'd like 2019, just come up and see me after this session. All right? So again, Medicare is always looking for ways to improve their resources, their website. Their website is great. It's very user-friendly. It's really my number one resource when it comes to information about Medicare. More telemedicine. Medicare is broadening the availability of telehealth programs, letting people confer with a doctor or nurse via telephone or internet. And in 2019, Medicare will begin covering telehealth services for people with end-stage renal disease, which is, again, kidney failure, or during treatment for a stroke. Okay? Lifestyle support, beginning in January, so this year, Medicare Advantage plans have the option to cover meals delivered to the home, transportation to the doctor's office, and even safety features in the home, such as bathroom grab bars and wheelchair ramps. A medical provider will have to recommend this first. But again, it depends on the plan. The plan has the option to do that. In-home help, the in-home help is very significant. It says that Medicare Advantage plans, again, have the option to pay for assistance from home health aides or beneficiaries who require daily help with daily activities, including, again, dressing, eating, and personal care. Okay.
Is that just for Medicare supplement?
No, this is Medicare Advantage
I
plans.
mean, just for Advantage?
Yeah, depending upon the plan, the plan may approve
Yeah, those
benefits for these.
are
For
not
this.
covered under Medicare.
No, again, as I said that earlier slide, Medicare does not cover these services.
So if you have Medicare and a supplement, it doesn't.
No. This is just speaking to the Medicare Advantage side of coverage. And then the plan test drives, that speaks to what we just spoke about, that the Medicare Advantage enrollment plan, January 1st through March 31st, that's new this year for Medicare. So they're trying to see how that will work, giving people that additional time to decide if the Medicare Advantage plan that they chose is working out for their needs. Plan F, okay, so January 1st, 2020, so coming up, is there anybody here who has Plan F as a Medigap secondary plan for Medicare? Okay, I see a few hands. So Plan F, starting January 1st of this coming year, 2020, anybody who turns 65 after that date will not be eligible to enroll in Plan F. If someone already has Plan F, they can continue to stay with it. However, here's what they're saying will happen. So if you have no new people going into Plan F, so you have a shrinking pool of people in which to spread the risk, and that pool of people is getting older and probably not healthier. So they project that shrinking pool, the insurance premiums will significantly go up. So that's just something that's coming up.
Why did they do that?
Why what?
Why did they do that?
Why did they do what?
Increase the amount of people that could join Plan F.
My guess is that it's just costing Medicare too much. They're trying to make Medicare last as long as possible.
Okay, but
So-
what, I mean, all right, and I believe somebody said that they had the information about you're out of country on Plan F. I thought that was the whole purpose of Plan F, that there was.
Well, Plan F, again, the out of country, the foreign travel, that's not only Plan F. There's other Medigap plans that offer that coverage, that foreign travel coverage that you spoke about. So, no, I don't. I mean, it's you're right. This hasn't happened yet. I mean, again, the information that I'm gathering says that because so many people have Plan F and it's such a it works. I mean, how does it work for you? I mean, is it?
I hadn't had to use that. I mean, I only got it because it had out of country.
Oh, because of the out of country, right?
I didn't know that was the only one that had it.
Well, look, people that have Plan F that I know speak very highly of it because, again, the whole idea is that you're paying your monthly premium to the plan, and then you have no costs after that. You get your hip replacement, you get your knee replacement. It just it gets covered. So I mean it's the that paying the monthly premium avoids you from having to pay potentially that 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. So that's so. Just real quick, I want to talk about insurance fraud. So insurance fraud is a $150 billion, or it's led to $150 billion in losses every year. And so what does that mean? What does that mean when insurance companies are losing money from fraud? Who ends up paying for it? We do. That's right. Average of $1,000 more per family a year in additional premiums. And older adults are mostly targets for life and health insurance fraud. And it's mainly because they feel like they need this type of coverage because ultimately they don't want to become a burden to their families. And so they'll buy health insurance, they'll buy more health insurance than they need, they'll buy more life insurance than they probably need. And so again, that's where they can be susceptible to fraud. Insurance fraud, just be careful when you're solicited by insurance agents. Be wary of really low premiums. Be careful of buying insurance over the internet. And the Texas Department of Insurance, you can always access information about a specific agent or a company that's licensed to sell in the state of Texas. Medicare fraud, $54 billion a year problem right now. And, you know, it's not just frauds and scams, but, I mean, I'm sure all of us have probably experienced just human error. Medical billing, you know, the medical billing right now, I mean, it's like another world you're dealing with. You know, you know, a lot of people, they'll get billed for an incorrect service and they'll immediately say, oh my gosh, that's fraud. They're trying to charge me. Well, maybe it's fraud or maybe it's just human error. But anyways, everyone, we've got to do our part. You need to contact whoever the source of the error is and get it corrected so that we can try to address this problem of known as Medicare fraud. I just want to show you this. Does everybody that's on Medicare, has everybody received their new Medicare card?
Yeah.
Yes? If you haven't, you need to contact Medicare. Okay? But this is just a slide that shows the old Medicare card versus the new Medicare card. You can see the old one used Social Security number plus a letter at the end. Usually it was letter A, versus the new Medicare card, which is a random series of letters and numbers. Again, the whole idea is to help reduce identity theft. Okay. Just some, all right, quick Medicare takeaways for 2019. What are your medical priorities? Everybody has their own individual priorities when it comes to your health. And so I always get asked, you know, what's the best plan? What's the best plan? What's the right plan? Well, let's sit down and talk about what your priorities are, what your needs are, and then we'll decide, you know, what is the right plan. There's no such thing as an ideal plan, and what that means is, again, focus on your priorities, try to address those priorities, and you may have to give up something in addressing what your priorities are when it comes to picking out the right plan. Seek unbiased professional advice. I've already talked about my role at the Senior Source as a counselor and as an advisor. I don't represent any particular companies, products, anything like that. I'm just here to serve my clients' needs. So, all right, so we reached the end of my slide presentation.
Molly's not
Yes.
here and she asked me to close.
Oh, okay, okay. So,
But you're certainly, I hope you will stay here and ask.
yeah, no, I'm here to answer any questions. That's my job, so.
Right. I'm Andy Robb. I'm Director of Stewardship and Generosity here at the Highland Park Pres. And I wanted to, before I close this in prayer, I wanted to tell us about two other things. We have 3 more of these evenings, the next 3 evenings, next 3 Monday nights. Thank you, Elaine Curtis. Yes. She's the brains and the brawn behind all this. We really appreciate it. Next week we'll be talking about health care. Nobody's interested in that, I know, but it's a good dinner, so come anyway. The week after that is Russ Reed talking about estate planning. And then finally, Elaine and I are going to share mostly about what you do before you go. On our church website in the next week or so, I'm going to have a new web page called Tax Smart Giving. As many of you know, the tax laws have changed dramatically, and they have really changed for seniors. And so it's going to discuss that, and if you all want, we'll have a separate session about that sometime, because it's really changes the way we think about giving and the way we think about filing our taxes. So, but be sure and sign up for the next 3 weeks, please. And then the other thing is we have an adult trip, adults only, by the way, to Fredericksburg, and that is April 30th through May the 1st. And so that should be an exciting time, and encourage everybody to sign up for that. So let me close this in prayer. Carl, thank you so much. This has been terrific, I think. And any other questions that have? But let me close this in prayer, and then we can leave if we need to. Father God, thank you so much for giving us your grace and giving us financial resources. We are rich in this country, and we are so blessed. And I ask that you would just give us wisdom in how we handle our money. We thank you for this evening. We thank you for the fellowship and the great information, and just pray that we can honor you with everything that we have. So be with us, keep us safe. In Christ's name I pray, amen. Thank you all.
I'm going to mention one thing. We have Plan D